Southwest 3216 only tired, runway 24 right for land.
Hello, welcome to the CAT-10 rating. This is the 10th flight in the VFR Training and Communication Series on the PilotEdge network. This one is going to get a lot more interesting because we are going to be going through Class Bravo airspace. And all the ratings up until this point, we've either been dealing with Deltas or Charlies or maybe even Class Echo and Golf airspace. We recently just skirted beneath the Bravo airspace, but now we are going to attack it and we are going to go right through the Bravo. It's going to be very interesting. Let's start briefing. I say in every video, but likely more importantly than any other video, make sure you read the textual portion of the CAT-10 that you see right here. Read the textual portion before you watch the video. That way you know what I'm talking about when I reference all these transitions and the radials and so forth. So an overview of today's flight, we're going to be flying from Camarillo Airport, that's Charlie Mike Alpha, out to Orange County Airport, that's Sierra November Alpha. You may also know of Orange County as John Wayne Orange County Airport. SkyVector's showing about a 77-mile flight today, and this is going to be roughly our route. Now you'll see that we'll depart eastbound out of Camarillo. We'll head over towards the San Fernando Valley, which is Van Nuys Burbank area. We've dealt with Burbank in prior CAT ratings. And then we will make a turn to the southeast and join the coastal route transition through the Class Bravo airspace. That's right, you see this blue line here we've talked about in the past. This is the Class Bravo. If you want a refresher about how to read charts and what Class Bravo looks like versus Class Charlie, check the link in the top right of the screen. That'll link you to the first PilotEdge workshop video that talks all about airspace. So we will take that coastal route through the Los Angeles Bravo. The coastal route is a charted transition that we'll take a look at here in just a minute. We'll make a turn at Los Angeles VOR, head down to the southeast, and as we get out here just past Palos Verdes and just over the Queen Mary, we will be outside the Bravo and we can begin to turn towards Orange County. We're going to talk about that a lot more in depth coming up. Alright, going back and taking a look at the actual rating page itself, we'll look at what we actually need to do to complete the rating. And it's pretty straightforward. Depart Camarillo, arrive at Orange County, and use the published coastal route through the Los Angeles Bravo airspace. Make sure you inform ATC that you're performing the CAT-10 on your initial contact with Camarillo ground, and that's all. Now during the CAT-10, you're not going to pick up flight following from the ground as we've done in some of the previous CAT ratings. You're more so going to channel your inner CAT-4. Remember what you learned in the CAT-4 when we departed San Luis Obispo Airport, a towered Class Delta airport, without getting flight following. We just departed down to the south towards Santa Maria. That's essentially going to be the same process here. We're just going to call up and request an eastbound departure out of Camarillo and start heading out to the east. We're not going to reference anything about flight following, and then you can either choose to call up Point Mugu approach, which is the overlying approach control for Camarillo Airport, or you can wait until you're out towards Burbank and just call up SoCal approach for your transition. In today's video, I'm going to do the latter of the two. I'm going to call up SoCal when we get out towards Burbank and Van Nuys. There's really no point in picking it up earlier. The only reason that you might want to pick it up earlier from Point Mugu approach right after takeoff is just to get that part out of the way so that you're on ATC's radar. It might just be a little bit less for you to have to worry about. So keep that in mind and figure out what your plan is before you leave the ground. So you know if you're going to call Point Mugu approach, again, just overhead Camarillo Airport, or if you're going to venture out east a little bit on your own and call up SoCal approach as you near the Van Nuys Burbank area, and at that time you'll actually be making your request to transition via the coastal route. So let's talk about that while looking at the chart. Today, by the way, I'm using the Los Angeles TAC chart. I'd recommend using that for this one because it has all your transition information over to the left. You'll see the difference between using the World VFR chart is that it doesn't have any of that information on the side of the chart. There is no side because it blends all the charts together. But when you specifically select the Los Angeles TAC chart, it'll bring up all that information on the side, which is actually going to be very helpful today in regards to our transition through the Bravo. We talked recently about the fly chart, the Los Angeles fly chart in recent CAT ratings. That one's not going to help us all that much. It will help clear things up a little bit, but again, it doesn't have that information regarding the Bravo transition. So it won't be as helpful for this one. I'd recommend the Los Angeles TAC. So departing Camarillo, again, just a towered Class Delta, we're just going to request an eastbound departure, so we can either expect a left or right down departure from the tower. Believe runways 26 is in use today, and then we will head out to the east. So as we venture out east, we'll be climbing up to 5,500 feet, which will be our cruise altitude and our altitude in which we're going to perform the coastal route transition. As we get out here towards Van Nuys, probably about 10 miles or so from Van Nuys VOR, I'm going to tune SoCal approach, and I'm going to request transition through the Bravo via the coastal route. The coastal route is a published VFR transition through the Bravo. You go over to the left side of the chart here, left side of the TAC chart, and you'll see all of the published VFR transitions through the Bravo. Just going over them briefly so you know what else is out there. You have the Coliseum route, the Hollywood Park route, the mini route, which sometimes it's closed depending on the staffing of the tower configuration, the coastal route, which is what we're doing today, and finally the Los Angeles Special Flight Rules area. This is actually a really interesting one. I'd recommend you check that out at a later date. You can actually go right through the Bravo without even talking to ATC. Now don't let that confuse you. That's only because there's a special route that specifically allows you to do so. All the other times you always have to get a specific Bravo clearance, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But this route is very interesting because it allows you to go through the Bravo without an actual clearance. And again, that's a very special use case. Do not do that unless you are actually flying the Special Flight Rules area, which is defined here on the TAC chart. But today we're going to focus on the coastal route. Yes, the coastal route transition. Now the coastal route is a two-way transition. That means you can take it either up to the northwest or, like we're going to be doing today, down to the southeast. You'll see that the available altitudes are 5,500 or 6,500, and that's going to be respective based on your direction of flight. Today we'll be heading down to the southeast, so it's an easterly heading, so it's going to be 5,500 for our altitude. Of course, that could always change with ATC's restrictions, but that's what we're going to be planning on unless told otherwise. Right below the coastal route, you'll find some very important information about the route itself. We're not going to worry about the northbound route because that's not what we're flying. So we're just going to worry about the southbound route. We're going to read this together. Enter the Los Angeles Class Bravo southbound, a beam that's above the pass established on the Los Angeles 323 radial. Okay, so we're getting into radials now and VORs. And in prior CAT ratings, I've used some VOR navigation, and I've told you that it's not really important for the rating itself. Well, today you are actually going to have to use a VOR. It's going to be critical for the navigation of this flight. So I'm going to teach you some really basic VOR navigation, and I'll even include a timestamp so you can skip ahead past it if you already know how to use a VOR and you're comfortable with that. But if you're not comfortable using a VOR, we'll talk about that here in just a moment. So what we just read, to put it in more graphical perspective, we're going to enter the coastal route up here just west of Van Nuys. And remember, we're going to be going southeast bound. So we're going to enter the route here. This is the Bravo airspace. So we're going to intercept the Los Angeles 323 radial inbound. We're going to track that to the southeast. This is at 5,500, remember. And I'm going to stop here and just say that we cannot do this at all without a specific Bravo clearance, unless the approach controller tells us cleared through or cleared into the Los Angeles Class Bravo airspace or the Los Angeles Bravo airspace. We cannot fly this route. So you need to make sure that unless you have that specific clearance through the Bravo airspace, you do not pass this blue line, at least at 5,500. If you're below the Bravo, that's okay, but you cannot cross this line, enter Bravo airspace without a clearance. But once you get that clearance, you are cleared through the Bravo. You can fly to Los Angeles 323 radial inbound to the VOR, at which case you'll make a little left turn, and let's talk about that now. Going back here, it says after crossing the Los Angeles VOR, proceed outbound on the Los Angeles 123 radial until exiting the Los Angeles Class Bravo near the Vincent Thomas Bridge. Maintain altitude as assigned by ATC. Note aircraft departing Long Beach, Torrance, Hawthorne, Santa Monica. Okay, that doesn't apply to us because we're not departing any of those airports. So let's take a look at that in graphical context. So we'll make that small left-hand turn at the Los Angeles VOR to track then the Los Angeles 123 radial outbound towards the Vincent Thomas Bridge. And it's important to know that the blue line that you see here to denote the Bravo, this is the overall lateral limits of the Bravo. There are many shelves with this, and I'll show you right now on the TAC chart. So we just talked about we're going to be joining just west of Van Nuys down to the southeast. We'll intercept the Los Angeles 323 radial, which is conveniently charted for us here on the chart. You see my magenta route line is roughly following those arrows there that represent the Los Angeles 323 radial. And we'll follow that down to the Los Angeles VOR. We'll make that left turn to intercept the Los Angeles 123 radial outbound. Again, also charted. You see those magenta arrows and the 123 with the arrow pointing outwards. And there it is again charted. Now, once we get out towards the shoreline, basically once we're out over the water, we will be clear of this 10,000 down to 5,000 foot MSL shelf. And that will put us in the 10,000 to 8,000 shelf, which means we will at that point, since we'll be at 5,500, we will be beneath the Bravo airspace and clear of the Bravo airspace. Even though we're not clear of the lateral limits, we are at that point still clear of the vertical limits. So once we are out over the water, we will then, if SoCal has not already told us, we will request to resume our own navigation and head over to Orange County. and that will be our arrival airport. We'll brief our arrival into Orange County here in just a few minutes, but at this point, it's time to talk about VOR navigation. Again, if you're already familiar with VOR navigation, go ahead and skip to the next chapter of this video. That starts at the timestamp you see at the bottom of the screen now, and you don't have to worry about learning about VORs. We'll just get right into the thick of things. For those of you who would like a brief crash course on VORs, just a disclaimer, this is truly going to be just that, a crash course on VORs, and truly just teaching you kind of the premise of how VOR works and what you need to transition the Bravo today on this transition. So we'll look at the Los Angeles VOR. This is the VOR symbol here, and around the VOR you'll always see this radial circle. It has 360 degrees all around the Los Angeles VOR. You'll notice at the top here this bolded line that points to the 0, which also equals 360. It's the same value. And you'll notice it's offset from true north just because of the magnetic variation. So that's the reason that 0/360 is not pointing directly upwards. It's just due to the magnetic variation. So this bold line represents our 360 degree radial. If you were to intercept the Los Angeles 360 radial, you would be flying this course. Now the radials extend clockwise all the way up to 360 degrees. So here's the 6. There's a 6 here that marks the 060 radial. And it continues onwards. You'll see the 18 that marks the 180 degree radial, that's due south. And then you'll see the 27 here, that's 270 degrees, that's west. And then finally back to north. Along the way you'll find 33, that's 330, 24, that's 240 degrees, you get the point. Now as far as today is concerned, we need to dial up 113.6. Every VOR also has a frequency associated with it, so 113.6, and we'll dial that in our nav1. We'll do that right now so you can see that happen. Okay, so I've set that on my nav1. It's even picking it up right now. It says LAX, so we know we have it tuned correctly. So down here, this little green needle, this is what we're going to use to actually track and monitor the VOR. So we need to dial up, if we go back to the chart, we need to dial up the 323 degree radial. Now, radials can be tracked inbound and outbound. So it's important to note that even though we're going to be on the 323 radial, we're going to be flying it inbound. So our course heading is actually going to be the reciprocal of 323, which is going to be 143. So our course heading is going to be roughly 143 degrees as we track inbound to the Los Angeles VOR. Now that does not mean that we are on the 143 degree radial. Remember, all the radials come off of the VOR and they go clockwise. So the 143 degree radial would actually be down here in the southeastern quadrant of the VOR. So it's always important to remember that your heading might not completely match up with the radial you're flying. It will only match up if you're flying outbound on the radial. So therefore, when we hit Los Angeles VOR, we're going to make that slight left turn to intercept the Los Angeles 123 degree radial outbound. At that point, our heading will match up with the VOR's radial because we will be outbound. The radials always reference the outbound number, but that does not mean that you cannot track them inbound. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to you. Just trying to picture a bunch of laser beams just shooting off the VOR in 360 different directions. And essentially you are looking to track one of those specific laser beams directly into the VOR. Once you do that, you're going to track another laser beam directly out of the VOR. And that's how you're going to maintain your course. So our first course is going to be that 323 degree radial. So we're going to twist this around and we're going to make it so the butt end of the arrow points to 323. Now, why are we doing the butt end and not the arrow? That's because, remember, we're going to be tracking it inbound. So 323, remember that's 330, so that's 320, so we'll go a little bit above that. That makes 323, and that makes our course heading 143. Remember, the reciprocal. So we're going to have that ready, and as we get towards Van Nuys, you'll see that we'll get a little green needle that's going to slowly move in from the top of the picture here. It's going to slowly move in, and it will eventually meet up with the rest of this arrow. At that point, we have intercepted the 323 degree radial off of Los Angeles VOR, and we will point towards the arrow. So the arrow will then go up when we make our turn, and then we'll be tracking on a 143 degree course, which is the reciprocal of the 323 degree radial. As we get to the Los Angeles VOR, and we can bring up our DME so that when we get towards the Los Angeles VOR, we will then flip the arrow over to the 123 degree radial. So we're just going to twist our OBS here just a few degrees over so it says 123. And it's just going to be a 20 degree turn, and that way we'll be tracking the Los Angeles 123 degree radial outbound. Just make that slight left turn. Now this is the DME, the distance measuring equipment. This will tell you exactly how far you are from the VOR. But one important thing to note about that is that it uses slant range. What that means is that since we'll be at 5,500 feet, which is just over a mile, it's likely going to show about 1.0 nautical miles, even though we're directly on top of the VOR. Remember, because it's measuring your distance from the physical VOR, not your lateral distance. So keep that in mind with VOR navigation, that your distance will not always be exact. You have to account for that slant range. So essentially, this will never say 0. Once this starts actually picking up the signal from Los Angeles, we'll get a number here, and unless we were to land on top of the Los Angeles VOR, this would never say 0. Hopefully that helps teach some of you how to fly and tune a VOR. And if you need more help, you can swing by the PilotEdge Discord at pilotedge.net/discord. There are plenty of people from the PilotEdge community, both staff members and just fellow pilots, who would be willing to help you. Okay, so now let's brief our arrival into Orange County. So we already discussed that at some point we are going to get out over the water and we will be clear of Bravo airspace, assuming we're at that 5,500 foot altitude that we've briefed. Once we're out over the water and clear the Bravo, we can then request, if ATC doesn't get to us first, our own navigation, in which case we can start making a turn towards Orange County. Now we'll already be talking to SoCal approach, so therefore we don't have to worry about the outer portion of the Class Charlie airspace. Remember, if we were not talking to SoCal, then we wouldn't be able to hit this 5,400 down to 2,500 foot shelf. We'd have to talk to SoCal Approach because they're the controlling entity. But we will be in contact with them, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, one thing that's kind of specific to Orange County, because it's a very busy airport for general aviation and airliners, is that Orange County uses some very specific VFR points in order to enter the pattern. And you'll notice those here on the chart. Those are denoted by these flags. You have Miles Square Park right here. You have another flag down here that's the Huntington Beach Pier, the Huntington Pier. And the final one is down to the southeast, which is Signal Peak. So those are the 3 VFR reporting points that John Wayne Tower or SoCal Approach uses to get you into the pattern at Orange County. Therefore, if we are just leaving the coastal route transition because we've been given resume on navigation and maintain appropriate VFR altitudes, we'll start heading towards the east. Now at that point, either SoCal will switch us to Tower, and Tower will tell us which of the VFR reporting points to aim for, or SoCal will tell us which of the VFR reporting points to aim for. So they might say, proceed direct to Miles Square Park, or proceed to overfly Signal Peak. Now, Signal Peak is usually only used from the southeast, so I wouldn't worry about that one too much for this rating unless you end up going way down south over the water. The other one, proceed direct to Huntington Beach Pier. So by the time you get over those points, you might have an instruction to report over the pier or over the park, or Tower might just then tell you, after Huntington Beach Pier, proceed to enter the right down runway 20 right, something of the sort. It basically just allows Tower to have specific points where you're coming from and allows them to manage their traffic flow a little bit better. Now in the sim, it can be a little bit difficult to spot these points, so make sure you have good situational awareness and don't be afraid to just tell the controller that you're unfamiliar with the points or that your sim is not depicting the graphics necessary for you to see these points. Miles Square Park looks like exactly what it sounds like. It's a square mile park. It's some green grass. Huntington Beach Pier is a pier that's down just to the southwest of the airport, and then Signal Peak is a little peak that's down there to the southeast. So as we get down there, we will, by the way, we'll pick up the ATIS some point as we leave the coastal route. So we'll grab the ATIS at Orange County. That way we can let SoCal and the Tower know, and then Tower will just give us simple pattern entry, and that should be it. Okay, that's the briefing for the coastal route transition and the overall flight. I'm going to get the cockpit set up here, and we'll get ready to taxi. Okay, I've got my cockpit set up now. I grabbed the ATIS. I also tuned ground on 121.8. I've got Tower on 128.2 on my standby comm 1, so I'm ready to swap the tower when we get to the runway. Additionally, the ATIS was saying information Charlie, runway 26 in use, so we'll depart west, expect a left or right down departure as we briefed. I've also put in the Los Angeles VOR 113.6. That was part of the VOR teaching that we did earlier in the video. You might have skipped through it so you didn't see that, but I've put that in there. And I've also tuned the radial to the 323 degree radial, which is down here. So you'll see the butt end of that on 323, which puts our course on the 143 reciprocal since we'll be inbound. My transponder is to the mode C mode, and we're on a VFR code of 1200, and we're ready to taxi. Bring up the diagram here. I'm just east of the tower, right here off of taxiway Bravo, and we will go ahead and call ground. Camarillo ground, Baron 210 Pop Echo is at the base of the tower, ready to taxi for an eastbound departure with information Charlie. This is for the CAT-10 rating.
Bearing 210 Papa Echo, Camarillo ground, hello, runway 26, taxi via Foxtrot Alpha.
Runway 26, taxi via Foxtrot Alpha, bearing 0 Pop Echo. Okay, here we are at runway 26, and I'm going to swap over to the tower frequency of 128.2. While I'm here, I'm also going to get the approach frequency that we're eventually going to call, which is going to be 134.2. Camarillo Tower, bearing 210 Pop Echo, holding short of runway 26 for an east departure.
Bearing 210 Papa Echo, Camarillo Tower, make left down departure, runway 26, cleared for takeoff.
Left down departure, clear for takeoff, runway 26, bearing 0 Pop Echo. Gear up. Alright, now we've been instructed just for that left down departure, and remember what you learned in the CAT-4 rating when we departed San Luis Obispo Airport, which is also just a tower class Delta without any sort of radar services or flight following. So we just need to make that left down departure. We need to exit the airspace, which we didn't brief that actually, but that's 2,000 feet and below at Camarillo. And because we're in the Barren, like we've done many times, we will likely just leave the airspace vertically before we do laterally. So 2,000 and below is the delta here at Camarillo. So 5,500 on the altitude select. Now if you join me for the brief VOR crash course, we talked about this little green line that was going to come into view from top to bottom. And that is what represents the Los Angeles 323 degree radial. So we still have a ways to go, but once that green line comes into the middle here and lines up with the arrow, that means we are crossing the 323 radial at that point, or at least maybe even a little before that point when it's about to intersect that path. We're going to be in a right turn to start following that radial. At that point, the arrow will move with our heading. The arrow will point up to the very top here as we establish ourselves on the 143 heading, which will be our course, and assuming that the green line is lined up with the arrow, that'll mean that we are on the 323 degree radial. Remember, radials go outbound, we'll be tracking it inbound, so it's going to be the reciprocal. Now I'm just kind of navigating eastbound because I know the area quite well, and I'll be able to spot Van Nuys and Burbank fairly well. If you're unfamiliar with the area, you could do several things. You could obviously put it into your GPS, so you have Van Nuys or Burbank Airport in there. I'd recommend probably Van Nuys would be the better landmark, or you could even tune the Van Nuys VOR. Now keep in mind that tuning the Van Nuys VOR is one more step you have to do, and you certainly don't want to forget to flip over to the Los Angeles VOR, otherwise you're going to be tracking the entirely wrong radial. You don't want to just be tracking willy-nilly down to the southeast or something, because in that case you will end up violating the Bravo airspace down here. Remember, we're climbing to 5,500. This whole shelf is 5,000 to 10,000. So you want to make sure you are on an easterly heading. But as I said, I'm just kind of navigating east because I know the area. If I look out the window now, I can actually see Burbank Airport way out in the distance. Those are the approach lights. That's going to make Van Nuys Airport probably right about here. It should come into view as we get a little bit closer here. But we're coming up right on 5,400 feet now. We'll level off shortly, and we will get prepared to call SoCal approach here in just a moment. Okay, I've actually engaged the autopilot here just so we can purely focus on calling approach and getting established on this transition. So I'm going to tune up SoCal approach now, 134.2. I had that ready at the hold short bars that we talked about. So it was just a real quick one press and we're ready to go. Now calling approach is going to be like any other approach call that we've made before. Just who we're calling, who we are, where we are. We'll throw on our altitude as well, and our request, which is going to be our transition request through the coastal route. We don't have to tell them it's for the CAT-10 because we already told Camarillo ground that, so it's already in the system. And we obviously have to give a distance of some sort. An easy distance is about 20 miles to the northwest of Los Angeles, so that'll work for us. And actually we can see this needle start coming in, so we got to do this quickly. SoCal approach, bearing 210 Pop Echo, about 20 miles to the northwest of Los Angeles, 5,500, request coastal route transition through the Bravo, landing Orange County.
Number 210 Pop Echo, SoCal approach, squawk 0434.
0434, bearing 0 Pop Echo. Now one thing we also should have briefed is the distance from Los Angeles to the Bravo. So I just pulled that up on the chart here. We have 11 miles DME from LAX VOR up to the edge of the Bravo, which means we still have 6 miles on the DME before we end up being in violation of the airspace. So I'm going to go ahead and start tracking this radial inbound. We just know that we cannot end up clipping that 11-mile point, in which case we would be inside the Bravo airspace. If ATC gets too busy...
Contact 5 miles south of Van Nuys, contact SoCal approach 134.9.
134.9, 0 Pop Echo. Okay, so this is a great example of how we might need to kill some time here. So 34.9. We're about 3 miles from the Bravo.
Level 1,500. Level 100, Santa Barbara departure, ready to contact. Cancel out to restriction.
3 miles from the Bravo now, so I'm going to continue pulling that speed back by some more time.
26504, clear to recline.
Remember, we cannot violate that Bravo unless we get that clearance. SoCal, bearing 210 Pop Echo, 5,500. Request transition through the coastal route, landing Orange County.
210 Pop Echo, SoCal approach clear to Bravo Airspace, coastal route southbound, maintain VFR 5,500 while in Bravo Airspace, LA altimeter 29904.
Clear through Bravo via the coastal route, 5,500, bearing 0 Pop Echo. Beautiful. There's our clearance. With a mile 0.7 to spare, we got our clearance. Now, that got really close to me ending up, I was really close to actually peeling off and having to break off the radial there because we were just getting too close. You don't want to wait till the last second. You never want to assume a Bravo clearance because the Bravo clearance is it's a privilege to have. It's certainly not your right, and you are going to have to just adapt to whatever ATC tells you. So you cannot assume that that clearance is going to come. Now, as you heard, we were cleared through the Bravo airspace, cleared through Los Angeles Bravo airspace. So as we pass that 11-mile point here, we're at 5,500 feet. We are officially in Class Bravo airspace at this point. So I'm going to be hand flying this the entire way, 5,500 feet. We're on that 323 radial, and we're going to try and keep that needle as centered as we can. So we need to head a little bit to the right. For those of you who VORs are new, you need to keep that as centered as you can. So we're going to come a little bit to the right here, try and put that center with the arrow. Now we're 9 miles from the Los Angeles VOR. Remember at which point we're going to be switching this to the 123 degree radial, and we'll be tracking that outbound on the 123. So despite paying so much attention to this needle, we always still want to see and avoid out here. Just because you're in Class Bravo airspace does not omit your requirement to see and avoid. You always need to see and avoid when you're VFR, and so we're always having our eyeballs out here, making sure there's no traffic out here. All right, now 5 miles from the VOR. We're looking real good. We're nicely on that radial. We got that needle centered nicely with the arrow. And admittedly, I forgot to reset my altimeter when he gave it to me with the clearance, so make sure you're always getting that updated. It was just off by, it was 2903 versus 904, but I got that corrected now. Now 2.5 miles from the VOR, and we're going to wait until we're just about 2 miles. We're going to set that new course for the 123. Okay, so we're going to set that now. Now, it's not to say we're going to turn yet, but we're just going to get this ready. Okay, so we've got the course ready, 123. Now, this time we are going to be on a heading of 123 because we'll be tracking the 123 degree radial outbound versus the inbound course. When we were tracking the radial inbound, we were not on the outbound 323 radial for our heading. We were on the inbound 143 heading to track the radial which points outbound. All right, so we're directly over the VOR now, so we're going to start the left turn to the 123. We're going to have to trace that needle just slightly here. Watch our altitude. Got LAX just off our left wing. So here's the ocean here. We briefed earlier, if you recall, that once we're out over the ocean, we are outside of Bravo airspace. So that's what we're waiting for. We could also get a DME off our chart if we wanted to, but I'm fine with the visual reference point that we picked up off the chart. Also, like I said, ATC might beat us to the punch. They might tell us that we can turn on course before we have the chance to ask them. So now we are established on the 123 degree radial, which also now matches up with the 123 heading and course. To put this in perspective with the chart here, we're now tracking southeastbound. Tracking southeastbound now on the 123 radial. We came over here, we overflew the VOR, and now we're southeastbound on the radial. Now at this point, since we've already made that turn, 128.1, bearing 0 Pop Echo. SoCal bearing 210 Pop Echo, 5,500.
210 Pop Echo, SoCal approach, leaving Bravo airspace, proceed to Mile Square Park, John Wayne altimeter 29906.
We'll head for Mile Square Park and 906, 0 Pop Echo. Okay, well, we got
SoCal approach, Skyhawk 3.
the instruction to turn towards mile square now, so he gave us that a little bit early, I think, but that's perfectly fine.
Airspace, Ontario, 201.
Remember, your experience might be a little bit different than what you're seeing today, but we are going to head for Mile Square Park for now.
Squawk 1653, ident, Skyhawk 3.
And it's just going to be a little left turn here. Now, we also want to pick up the ATIS, and because we're already talking to SoCal, I'm just going to do that by using pilotedge.net/ATIS. We've discussed that in previous videos, pilotedge.net/ATIS, and we can just simply get the ATIS off of there. It's going to be information Romeo, and they are landing 20 left and right. Altimeter 2906, that checks with what he gave us, which is perfect. SoCal Baron 0 Pop Echo has Romeo.
0 Pop Echo, thank you.
Now, if you need some help finding Mile Square Park, it actually has its own GPS point, Victor Papa Lima Mike Sierra, as most of these VFR reporting points do. You see Huntington Beach Pier has its own as well. Some sims have that in there, some sims do not include the VFR reporting points in the GPS database, so it's just going to kind of depend on your specific simulator. At this point, we're going to get the tower in there ready on 126.8, so we'll get ahead of the airplane there, so it's just a quick touch later on. We're going to take a look at our taxi plan as well. We're going to land on 20 right, and we'll just park at the base of the tower as we love doing. So we'll plan for likely a hotel exit, and then just probably Bravo to parking. So that's our taxi plan. Now, when you're looking for Mile Square Park visually, this is a good reference point here, Los Alamitos Airport. It's a military airport. It's just to the southeast of Long Beach, just northwest of Mile Square Park. So we know that if we keep tracking southeast of it, we will eventually run into Mile Square Park.
Baron 0 Pop Echo, contact John Wayne Tower, 126.8, have a good landing.
126.8, 0 Pop Echo, good day. John Wayne Tower, Baron 210 Pop Echo is approaching Mile Square Park out of 5,300 with Romeo to land. Or correction, with, yes, Romeo to land.
Baron 210 Pop Echo, John Wayne Tower, overfly the tower 1,500, enter left down, runway 20 left.
Overfly tower at, I believe it was 1,500 for left down for 20 left, Baron 0 Pop Echo. Okay, so we got some interesting pattern and entry instructions there. We're going to overfly the Orange County Airport Control Tower at 1,500 feet, and then that'll essentially put us directly over the field, and then we will make a left down for runway 20 left. So that's a good way to get us on the other side of the airport. Here's Mile Square Park, by the way, just off our left. You can see all the baseball fields and just some lakes, maybe it looks like a golf course too. And then the airport is directly off our nose right here.
Our 26504 Santa Barbara approach. Roger, you can expect that, and I'll have the ATIS for you in just a moment. Thank you.
We're going to get ground ready on one, well, let's see, we'll be landing on the left side now. Alright, we're coming up on the tower now. You can see it directly off our nose. We're through 2,100 feet. So we got a nice, we're on a nice descent path to overfly the tower at 1,500 feet and enter left down for runway 20 left. Kind of unconventional pattern entry here, but it's really good to see in the video, so you can see that everything is dynamic and everything can change in real time. So we're going to level off at 1,500 feet here, head directly over the tower.
Spirit wing was 572, contact departure.
Okay, we're directly overhead the airport now. There it is, under our engine. Clear land, runway 20 left, Baron 0 Pop Echo, and we'll be parking at the base of the tower. Alright, there's our landing clearance. So we're going to start pulling the speed back as we enter that left down. We'll drop the gear.
26504, information Quebec, special observation 1716. 6814 Hotel, then
And we will hold short of runway 20 right.
Runway 20 right, a hotel, taxi parking via Bravo.
Cross runway 20 right at hotel and taxi to parking via Bravo, Baron 0 Pop Echo. John Ground, Baron 210 Pop Echo, request the result for the CAT-10, please.
0 Pop Echo, CAT-10 pass.
Baron 0 Pop Echo, thanks. Alright, another pass CAT rating. That was a lot of fun going through Bravo airspace with a published transition. I hope you learned something today about VOR navigation or just Class Bravo transitions. Good luck on your CAT-10, and we'll see you on the CAT-11. We'll be departing and arriving at Class Bravo airports.